Yes, it is March, and the tree's still up. So sue me. All right, in all fairness, the tree will come down soon. I'm staying with my parents right now. This is going to be a comprehensive discussion about Kings Island and all of the different things that you can do at Kings Island and what is necessary there. So, this is going to be an incredibly long video, so grab your drink and a snack. I have some cheese here. That's such a small little one. Here we go. Tell me down below in the comments, what's your favorite kind of cheese? And also tell me if there are any other questions that you have. This is going to be as comprehensive as I can make it out to be, but a comprehensive video about Kings Island still is going to include some additional questions that you may have. So please ask those questions. I want to hear them down below so that I can answer them as often as need be, so that you know exactly what you are doing when you come to Kings Island this coming year. Anyway, though, let's get going. Like I said, make sure you grab a snack and let's get into this. Getting in initially here to what is Kings Island. Kings Island is a great amusement slash theme park, really in the Cincinnati area, like very suburban Cincinnati, although it's become more and more a part of the city over the years. It's kind of between Cincinnati and Dayton, so both of those cities are pretty decent home bases for Kings Island. It is a great place to go and visit. It is home to, I think, 15 roller coasters, I think, at this point. And it does seem to me like it is one of the most well-established places for roller coasters that you can get. It really does have some great operations, and I have some theories about that. I think it has great operations because it doesn't do the biggest, fastest, newest thing that it possibly can every time it builds a new coaster. At Cedar Point, every single time they build a new coaster, they're always reaching for the stars, every single time. At Kings Island, they have done it before. And when they've done it before, like they've seen other parks do it, Carowinds, Cedar Point, and then a few years later, they'll be like, okay, we're gonna build another big coaster here, but we're going to build one that's already been established, that we know it's going to do really well. And so because of that, usually lines are a little bit lower, and it is just an overall really solid park. It was made in 1972, and if you know anything about theme park history, you will know that Disney World was made in 1971. Of course, Disneyland was made in the 50s, but it was definitely a part of a trend of building these encapsulated parks that were built in a spoken wheel system, which means it has like a circle in the middle, and then it has all of the different pathways coming out of that toward different parts of the park. Because of that, it's a very easily navigable park. It's also more of a it feels more like a park. It has more green spaces in the middle. It has a beautiful focal point, or as Walt Disney called it, a beautiful weenie in the middle of the park. It is a great place to go and visit because of those things. It feels very much like a vacation destination a la Disney World. Something you wouldn't normally think you might be able to find in the northern part of Ohio or just of the states in general. And at one point it was also a part of an entertainment company, that entertainment company being Paramount Pictures, which actually Michael Eisner worked for. If you know Michael Eisner also worked for Disney and was the CEO of Disney after he was at Paramount. So the two companies are a little bit connected, and then eventually Cedar Fair took over after Paramount wanted to get out of the amusement park industry. So that's just a little quick overview of what Kings Island is if you were completely uninitiated, but let's get into where it is and how you can get there. It is north of Cincinnati on Highway 71. Also, if you get to the loop around Cincinnati, the highway loop around Cincinnati, that is 275. 275 is just, it's northeast of Cincinnati from that point on Highway 71. Now, I always take 75 into Cincinnati from Dayton in order to get there because I'm coming from northern Indiana. So that is the best way for me to get there. Of course, there are going to be lots of different ways for lots of different people to get there. Of course, 275 is usually going to be probably the best route for most people to get there because it's going to be pretty centrally located going around the city. But it is very centrally located, and it's also centrally located in an area where they had lots of land. So all of that land, which has now most recently become a lot of suburbs in Mason, Ohio, it is a very easy area for them to continue expanding out of. And that's actually the really cool thing, I think, with Kings Island is they just have tons and tons of space. And because of its spoken wheel system, which we've already discussed a little bit, a lot of the rides actually radiate out from the park. So if you have a circle, you have these coasters that start right here. The stations are right here in the middle of the, or close to the park. And then they go out into like the countryside. It's pretty cool because walking from coaster to coaster to coaster isn't very hard because their stations are all located very close to the path, where a lot of times at Cedar Point you have to walk the length of a coaster before you can come up to the next coaster that you're going to ride, the next station that you want to get on. So Cedar Point is a lot more removed, and you have a lot more space between the attractions that you want to be a part of. At Kings Island, that is not the case. You have a lot less walking time that you have to do from coaster to coaster to coaster, which means you feel like you get a lot more accomplished a lot faster because you don't have to spend 10 minutes walking from ride to ride. Now, of course, Kings Island, you can get there by any mode of transportation. Usually it's going to be car, just like almost everything in our society is. There would, of course, be some urban transport that you could do around the Cincinnati area, but even then, this is suburban enough that usually it's not going to be something that's going to be readily available for you to do at in Cincinnati, or especially in Mason, Ohio. Cedar Point actually would be a little bit easier to do that with. Of course, you can always fly into Cincinnati and then take an Uber to get to Kings Island also, and there are hotels very nearby. However, you may have to get an Uber each day of your park visit in order to get to Kings Island from that point. Now, we're already getting to a little piece of where we're gonna have to spend some money. So I need to start talking to you right away here about Kings Island itself, and really about Cedar Fair just in general, / now the Six Flags Company in general. The Six Flags Company altogether is now a cashless entity. You cannot, as of 2020, use cash for anything except for tips for your bartenders if you're wanting to do that. So we're getting into parking here. You need to make sure that you have money to be able even to park. If you don't have a card, if you only have cash, they will not let you in to pay for parking. Now, if you have a pass, then you can get in no matter what. And we'll talk about passes later on in this video. But parking at Kings Island is going to be, I believe, $45 per vehicle that comes to Kings Island. So that is very expensive for parking. Of course, you can have people drop you off also, but then those people are not coming into the park. So that is going to be a big part of difficulty for getting connected to Kings Island. If you do only have cash, you can get your cash changed into card inside the park. However, that's not going to help you with parking. My recommendation is you always need to buy some sort of a pass, but like I said, we'll get into that in just a little bit. But like I said, parking is $45 in and of itself, so keep that in mind from the very beginning. Now, beyond that, of course, there are hotels in the area. I've done a few reviews of the hotels in the area. However, I have some family members that live in the area. So with those family, often I will stay with them. I don't always get to, so sometimes I'll get a hotel. I've found some hotels where you can stay with dogs. I've found some hotels that are very close and that even keep an eye on Kings Island itself. Like you could open up the windows and then you can see Kings Island there. Of course, there is also the on-property hotel, and that one on-property hotel, which I'm not sure that would really be considered on property, but it's basically a subsection of Kings Island, is the Great Wolf Lodge Hotel that's right next door. That's going to be substantially more expensive than most of the hotels in the area. One thing that's really cool about Kings Island is the large city that it exists in, and not just that city, but also Dayton too, where both of those cities have tons of hotels, tons of activities, tons of events that are happening year round in the area. So there's not really a time of year that is incredibly busy where you're gonna have horrible rates. Where at Cedar Point, that's exactly what it is. Sandusky doesn't have a lot going on in it normally throughout the year, but in the summers it has a crazy amount of demand for hotels, and because of that there are very few hotels, but there's huge demand in the summer, so prices skyrocket like crazy in the summer, even for mom and pop hotels, where when you go to Kings Island, all of the hotels, all the brands that you're looking for, the Holiday Inns, the IHGs, the whatever kind you want to stay at, they are going to still have pretty reasonable rates throughout the year because they always have demand, and because of that there's always been a lot of supply of hotels that have been made throughout the years for Kings Island, and really just for the city of Cincinnati or of Dayton altogether. If we just do a cursory search for prices for Kings Island area, we're looking at Camp Cedar, we're looking at prices of $111, $68. Of course, for the Great Wolf Lodge, we've got $314. That also includes your tickets to go to the water park too, though. $106 for another hotel, $126, $84, $51, $94, $72. Here's an outlier of $204, $67 for a Quality Inn in Westchester. So you have a lot of different spaces that you can go to for these hotels, and it's varied throughout the area, but you're not looking at anything more than usually $150 for a hotel in that area, where, like I said, the prices for Sandusky are going to be way higher than that. Just like at Cedar Point, there are 3 different passes that you can get. One of those is the Silver Pass, and that goes only through Labor Day. You cannot get any of the Halloween Haunt activities through that, and we will talk about the different activities and events that are happening. Halloween Haunt is a big one for Kings Island. We'll get to that later. However, the Gold Pass is $140. Now, for some reason, this is feeling a little bit more expensive to me than I really expected it to be, which surprises me. The Prestige Pass is $340, and that is for you to have access to everything. The Gold Pass also does include Halloween Haunt, and it also includes Winterfest, which is another huge activity for the Kings Island audience to go visit. Prestige Pass includes all of it, plus you also get 1 free fast lane every single time that you visit the park, and you also get access to one of the lounges every single time that you come visit too. So if you just wanted to take a nap or relax a little bit, you can do that. Plus they also have snacks inside those lounges that are free, along with waters that you can also get, and sometimes other beverages. It kind of depends on what they're doing at each park for that. Now, beyond that though, if you wanted to go visit, say, Cedar Point also, or any other park in the Six Flags chain or the Cedar Fair chain, you would have to buy the Unlimited Visits Pass. It is the All Parks Passport add-on, and in order to get that, you'll have to pay at least $100. I think for the Gold Pass, it's $100. It is not available for Silver Pass, which is the one that only works for the summers. That you can only do for one park. If you are getting the Prestige Pass, I think it's more like $150 for you to add that pass onto every single park in the chain of parks that you can go visit. Now, on top of that, you can buy a pass for a single day, but a single day, good any day ticket is $45. Now, that doesn't include any like sales that they may have for anything. That's you buying a ticket that you just know will be good for any day, no matter what. Sometimes they may have tickets that will be a little bit cheaper, but if you buy that good any day ticket, you will forgo those potential savings that you could have on certain days. However, it's still cheaper than buying it at the gate. Buying any of these tickets at the gate, I've made that mistake before. Never go to the gate to buy a ticket. Always just buy it online. Bring up that app. I hate it. They're already paying people to be there anyway. Why don't they want them utilized? It doesn't make sense. I'm sure it's because they kind of like to phase out the people working at the ticket booth if they can, so they'd rather you be buying the tickets online, so they give you a really good savings on that. It does say $45 is 50% off of the gate price, so the gate price would be $90. Now, that $45 though, one way or another, with the $105 silver pass, you would have to pay for parking also, which means another $45. So for you by yourself, you're going to have to pay $90 one way or another to get into Kings Island by itself. So if you're getting into Kings Island and it's that much money anyway, you might as well buy the silver pass and try to come just one other time. Now, of course, if you have other family members or friends with you, it's maybe a little bit more complicated than that because you're only having to use one person's pass in order to park. So you could just buy a single any day ticket and it would be cheaper for you, especially if you have like a van full of people that you're gonna bring. That may be a cheaper option. But if you're coming even 2 times, or really if you're coming 3 times, especially with a large group of people, it's worthwhile at that point, no matter what, to at least buy the silver pass. And really at that point, it would be worthwhile to buy the gold pass. Even at $140, you'd still be walking away spending less money with the gold pass than what you would have to do if you bought 3 good any day tickets. What should you wear? I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but I tend to wear a lot of button-up shirts. And there's a reason for that, because I can cool myself off on those hot summer days in Ohio. Now, the issue with Ohio weather, and really just with Midwestern weather or Great Lakes region weather in particular, is that it gets incredibly hot, but then it also can get incredibly cold, kind of with not much notice at all. It doesn't take much for it to change, and it doesn't take much for it to go from being a cold morning to being a hot day. So because of that, I always try to be as versatile in what I'm wearing as I possibly can be. Part of that is making sure that my shirt's unbuttoned so that I can lose myself. I can lose my shirt, or at least open my shirt up a little bit. One thing that I do notice at Kings Island that's different than at Cedar Point is at Cedar Point, you can ride the water rides with your shirt off. Sometimes they're okay with that at Kings Island, but technically all of their signage says you cannot. So I tend to make sure that my shirt opens so that then I can really cool off on those hot days while I'm riding the water rides and all that kind of stuff, which is really nice to be able to do. And as a man, as a woman, finding versatility in what you're wearing is definitely worthwhile one way or another. You need that versatility. You need to be able to cool yourself off when you need to cool yourself off. So a cami for girls, even having a bikini underneath what you're wearing, as long as it's comfortable. You know, I don't want you to like hurt yourself with anything like that. Bathing suits underneath what you're wearing is fine. You do have to be able to cover up to some degree, but I've even seen girls wearing like bathing suit bottoms and having see-through pants on in the past. Of course, I've seen a lot of these like huge holes in jeans, which would be good for ventilation also. So another good way to cool off, just different ways to make sure that you can both cover up if you're too cold, maybe carrying an extra sweater along with you, having it tied around your waist, something like that. And then being able to warm yourself up if you need to, or cool yourself off by removing a layer if you need to also. At Kings Island, there is a ton to do. They actually have some fantastic shows. It's actually kind of fun because I've gone to several other parks now, and I've noticed that almost no other parks have the kind of entertainment caliber that either Cedar Point or Kings Island have. It is really great, the amount of entertainment that Kings Island has across the park, across the board. But they also, of course, are known for rides. They have several great flat rides, and they have some fantastic coasters. Now, like I said, these coasters that Kings Island have are not always the most record-breaking kind of rides. They're usually pretty solid, tried and true rides that they do, and they do really stick with some pretty regular brands. So they really stick with a lot of B&Ms in particular, which is great because they're reliable. They know what they can do, and they know that they are going to get the best bang for their buck out of that company. I love that from Kings Island because Kings Island does a great job of having some really, really solid lineups of great coasters, but they have like three trains running, and you will just rarely have big lines at all, which I absolutely love about Kings Island. But they do sometimes get some decent lines. But it is really nice how fast a lot of the lines at Kings Island move, even with those biggest of lines or rides. On top of that, there's also a litany of food and drink. Really though, there's only about 4 different places. For as big of a park as Kings Island is, there's only about 4 different places to grab a drink. You've got a couple of main places. The Fest House is one of the biggest ones, and that's also a great place to go see a show. You can also go to the back of Enrique's, which is the Mercado, I think is what it's called. That's another great place to grab a drink. And then there are a couple of stands around. Now, I have noticed that the right side of Kings Island, when you come in, so if you're facing the Eiffel Tower as you walk in from the front, you go to the right, all that area doesn't have any kind of drinks at all in it. And I think that's because that's the kids area of the park. That whole half of the park is pretty much all kids area. If you go to the left, you've got several different places dotted around for you to grab a drink. Probably the most notable one is Miami River Brew House, which is a great place to grab a drink. There is actually a full service bar inside there. So often there is a big line at the front to get into the food at Miami River Brew House. But if you go around the back, there's a door at the back side, around the back toward the right of the front door. And if you go back there, it'll take you straight into the bar, so you don't have to wait in that massive line. You also can order food from that bar as long as everyone is 21 or older inside that bar area. Now, on top of that, there is also the water park, and the water park is the best place to get a tan. This is not happening smoothly. Okay, go get a tan at the water park. Now for me, honestly, the things I like to do the most while I'm at the water park is I just like to hang out in the lazy river. They do have a great lazy river. They also have a water slide that goes down the terrain, which I've never done. It's actually my biggest regret of Kings Island. After like 4 years of filming at Kings Island, I've still never done that, and it looks so fun. So I've really got to get on that, but that's the one thing I haven't done. If you've done that slide, please comment down below. I'd love to hear about it because I'm very excited to ride it and experience it. I just haven't done it yet. Beyond that, there are a couple of different like kids park areas that you can do, and of course several more slides that you also can do. There are 2 lazy rivers inside Soak City. Also, definitely really fun. All of those places are great places to go visit. great things to do. Honestly, I need to just get there with some friends that are my age to be a part of that with, which would be really, really fun. I just haven't done it yet, so that's something that needs to be on my bucket list for this year. Usually I end up there with my daughter, so I don't do all of the like adult things there. So maybe that's something that needs to change for this next year. Comment down below if you want me to go to Soak City and really show that place off, and not just an overview, but actually hang out with friends there. If you're interested in that, I'll definitely make that happen. When should you go? Now, like I said, Kings Island has multiple different seasons throughout the year, and they always have several different events. Now, some of those events are very, very clearly marked out and very obvious, but some of them are a little bit more nebulous. Now, the big ones that are very clearly marked out are, of course, the main season. You have your main season stuff. Before the school ends, it's just mostly weekends. And then you have school ends and you get deep into summer. And as summer hits, then you have your biggest part of the year. You have actually a couple of weeks where Kings Island is completely closed. And then you have Halloween weekends, or in this case, Haunt for Kings Island. And the Haunt is definitely a really fun thing. It's their Halloween experience, and lots of scary places to go, but you also can ride all of the rides while you are there. There's some haunted houses, and there are some scare zones also to take part in. And beyond that, once you're done with Halloween, again, the park closes for like a couple of weeks, and then it reopens for Winterfest. And Winterfest is a winter celebration full of lights and decorations, and a couple of different fun like slides for you to go down that basically feel like you're going down, going sledding essentially. There are a couple of rides that are available for you to do. You can make cards to send to Santa. There's a lot of fun things like that you get to do also. But yeah, Kings Island has a lot of times when you can come and visit. Now, the biggest times that I think are the most fun are when Kings Island is at full steam. And by full steam, I mean the shows are running, the rides are running, the events are running. Like, you just have a ton of stuff happening around the park. So the main times for me with that would be, of course, normal summer time, when all of the shows are still hitting at their fullest, and you've got a ton of activities going on in the park, a ton of people at the park. Of course, that's also going to be your busiest time to be at Kings Island too. If you're looking for less busy rides that are going to be happening at Kings Island, then you really need to be there at the very beginning of the year. Also, one of my favorite times to come is during Halloween weekends. And again, they're running at full tilt at that point. During Halloween weekends, Haunt. I always say Halloween weekends because I'm used to it from because I'm used to it from Cedar Point. I can't get the players right with our program. Kings Island has some great shows that happen for Haunt. And I love being able to go see those shows. But then beyond that, you're also able to ride all the rides. The weather's a little bit cooler, so it's nice to walk around during that time. And they really do a great job, especially with their streetmosphere at Kings Island. They're like haunts around the areas that are just like along the pathways are really, really cool. And some of just the scenery that they put out too, like there's just a ton of that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate all the detail that they put in to their haunt. And it's really fun to go and visit during that time. But there's just so much that's done at that time that's the reason why it is a really easy time to be able to go and visit. Again, lines may be pretty big still. So you do have to be prepared for some pretty big lines during that time. But it's definitely a fun time of year to visit Kings Island. Now, beyond that, the best time to go to Kings Island when you're looking for the smaller lines is whenever it's not intuitive to go to Kings Island. And that's always a hard thing to say, but essentially if it feels like more people will be there during that time, let's say it's during a break that you have, or it's during a weekend, those are the times that you really should avoid being at Kings Island at all costs. You don't want to go to Kings Island unless it's a time when you're gonna really have a good bang for your buck. But most people only have breaks to go and visit. I'm not telling you don't go to Kings Island, or don't go to Cedar Point, or don't go to Disney World even, for that matter, during those breaks. But if you can avoid them and you can use another time instead, then definitely use that time instead. However, if you can look at, well, okay, most people are gonna be there this Monday because this Monday is Labor Day. Okay, I'm not gonna go on Monday. We're gonna instead take 2 days extra off, and I'm gonna be there on Tuesday and Thursday. Then that's a great opportunity for you to do things like that. If there are times when you can take a day off of work, maybe in the midweek to hit a Wednesday or a Thursday, those are gonna be better options also. Because again, you gotta think against the crowds. Whatever the crowds are doing is what you don't want to be doing. So if all the crowds are going to be coming during spring break, maybe you can find a time before or after spring break, even a week or two before or after spring break, when you and your family can come instead. And that may be a better option for you. Of course, like I said, this is not a possibility for every single person. It's just what is maybe best practice overall if you're looking for the best experience, especially when it comes to riding as many rides as possible. However, within riding every single ride as fast as possible comes Fastlane. Of course, any Cedar Fair or now Six Flags Park is going to have a Fastlane option. And with those Fastlane options, you can get on the rides quite a bit faster. Of course, like the name suggests. However, those rides are not a guarantee, first of all, of no line at all. You definitely still have lines. I will say at Kings Island, it's much better than at Cedar Point. Most of the Kings Island rides have a fast lane line that takes you right up to the very front. So you can just go and bypass people all the way up to the station. And once you're on the station, then they'll be like, okay, come on, get on. At Kings Island, you also can buy individual fast lane for individual rides. You would go up to a kiosk and you can buy it from there. So you can buy, or you can also buy it on the app. So you go into each individual ride and you can say, I want a fast lane for Banshee, because you don't want to wait in that 45-minute line. So if you don't want to wait in that line, you can buy it for, I don't know, $12, something like that. And then you can skip the line fully for that one-time fee, for that one skip the line service that you're getting for your fast lane. So that is another option. It's actually a much cheaper way often to do it than to get Fastlane, because Fastlane is usually going to be $100 at least, if not a little bit more than that. And because of that, you're going to spend less money, but really there's just a few rides that you're looking to try to accomplish when you have your Fastlane. Because usually, especially at Kings Island, a lot of the rides that are a little bit smaller aren't going to have such terrible lines. So you can usually get on pretty quickly. So a lot of times combining those early morning and late evening strategies with a strategy of, I'm gonna buy 2 fast lanes for 2 of the biggest rides I don't wanna wait for, means that you can accomplish every single thing in the park at a minimal cost for the day, while still maybe even being able to watch every single show in the park, or just have some extra leisure time to do whatever else you may want to do while you're in the park also. And if you use some of the strategies that I'll give you throughout the year also, so press the subscribe button, because you'll see it firsthand on this channel, then using those strategies, you'll really be able to get onto all of these rides a lot faster. Let me know what kinds of things you want to see me actually experiment with at Kings Island this year. I'll be happy to do those things for you and help you out with your trip before you come to Kings Island for 2025. What's around Kings Island? Now, around Kings Island, there are a couple of different fun things. Now, really, to me, the biggest fun things would be going down to Dayton or up to Dayton and going down to Cincinnati. Of course, there are major league sports teams. There's minor league sports teams, especially in Dayton also. There are a lot of very fun things to do. There are some very large malls or shopping areas. Of course, the downtowns of both cities, especially Cincinnati, are spectacular and great places to go and visit. So all of those would be great places to go. There is also jungle gyms. There are also a couple of secondhand markets right off of 75 that are very, very fun places to visit, and I've made some videos talking about those places in the past also, so I'll leave a little bit of information here on the screen about those two. So definitely go and check those places out. They're all very fun. There's also a casino shortly off of Highway 75, another great place to go and visit. And then just a lot of the surrounding areas like Mason itself. Mason, Ohio is a really cute little downtown with a lot of great little shops. So just looking at all of the things around that area, there's just a ton to do. On top of that, I've gone like an hour south, and they also have the ARC experience down there. I filmed a video about that. There's just a lot of fun things that you can do. Cincinnati Zoo is another great place to go and visit. There's a lot of great stuff to go and see in that area that you could be a part of if you wanted to make your trip a little bit longer and go visit a couple of different things. How many days? Now, Cedar Point is a fully different experience from Kings Island. To me, Kings Island feels like a 2-day park at most, maybe 3 days to add a day of rest in there. If you want to do the park, and then you want to do the water park for 1 day, and then you want to get a day of rest in the middle, and maybe hit a few more coasters at the end of the day after your water park day, then that may be a great day to do 3 days, but you don't need the amount of time that you do at Cedar Point to do Kings Island, at least not usually. There are some days of the year when it is incredibly busy and you can't get anything done. But those days are few and far between in comparison to Cedar Point. At least they have been in the past. We'll see what this year's looking like as I'm there. And like I said, press that subscribe button and make sure that your notifications are on, because I will show you kind of what the trends are like. Maybe this year will be lighter attendance. Maybe this year will be crazier attendance. I have no idea what's really in store for Kings Island, but one way or another, I can let you know before your trip comes up so that you're prepared for whatever the crowd levels seem to be for this year. Of course, sometimes you luck out too and you get just a really lowly attended day, and who knows why? Nobody knows why. But crowds are very unpredictable in that way. Sometimes it just depends on what's happening, or if there's a sporting event happening in the area, whatever the situation is. Sometimes you've got like teen sports happening in Cincinnati, so tons and tons of teens and their families are there on a Tuesday, and you never expected it, but it's just what happens. But when those days come in, I will show you the way to bypass the crowds as well as you possibly can, be able to work past some of those difficult roadblocks that you may come into where you just start to feel like, man, this is way too busy of a day and I just can't do it today. Well, I'll show you ways to get around that and what you can do to really help yourself out to get the most bang out of your buck. Because nobody wants to spend 90 bucks going to Kings Island and realize that they feel like they've just wasted their day for that whole day. And I'm here to help you never feel that way and help you get the most out of your money. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today. Press that subscribe button, like button. I've said that 5,000 times in this video, so I apologize profusely. But do it, because we're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please, like I said, please put your questions down below. I really want to hear from you guys. What is it that you are wanting to know about Kings Island? Give me specifics. If there are things that I can tell you right now, I will. Otherwise, I'll wait until the park opens and then I will film a video about it. But I'm always looking for ideas of the things that you want to know. And if you want to know it, then I swear another 10 people at least in the audience, and probably more like 100 people in my audience, want to know the same question that you do. They just aren't willing to ask the question. So ask the question. Never feel shy about asking questions. I am not a Facebook group that won't allow you to ask the same question twice and you should look through all the questions. No, just don't even look through my videos. Just ask me the question. I'll either link an old video to you or I'll film a new one to let you know what's happening. So thank you guys so much for hanging out, and let's go. Hey, thanks for watching. I release theme park related videos at least a couple times a week, so press that subscribe button if you made it this far. Also, check out similar videos in the playlist to the right or find my newest video to the left. Thanks again, and let's go!